Hello and welcome to this Apstra Quick Tips video. My name is Adam Jarvis and today I'm going to be talking you through how you can make Apstra and Radius, make them be together so that you can authenticate your users instead of locally configuring them every single time. So without delay, let's jump in and take a look. So this is my Apstra home screen here, and then I've also got a Radius server. I've got my command line set up at the moment with logged into my Radius server to see when we get requests. But I'm going to log in initially just to my very first account, my admin account, and you'll see if I look under platform and users, I've only got one account configured, and that's the one I'm logged in as, and this has full administrative privileges. And if I also look under user roles, I can see that administrator role that I'm using currently is already defined in Apstra. All of these ones ship. And I've got device ZTP, which is used when we're using our ZTP server. There's also a license reader, there's a user permissions group and a viewer permissions group. But all of these ship out of the box. And I'm not going to look at privileges and roles at all. We're just going to use the ones that already come. But if I think about user management, one way that you could create your users and allow your users to log into Apstra is to create 20 separate accounts, set them all as different roles, different people, set the passwords locally. And that may be fine if you've only got a few users, but as you start to scale, particularly in an enterprise environment where you want somewhere to centrally manage all your passwords, then using an external provider is going to be probably going to be your preferred option. So what we're going to look at is how we can connect a Radius server in and do some requests and map our different users that are configured only in our Radius server, how we can map them to a permission group within Apstra. So the first thing is we're going to look at external systems and click on providers. And under here, you'll see that we have two tabs, providers and provider role mapping. We'll look at the second one a bit later on. But first of all, I'm just going to create the provider, and I'm going to call this Radius server. There's a few different options that you can choose to connect for authentication. So I'm not doing LDAP today or TACACS, I'm just going to look at Radius. I'm going to set it to active. And what this is telling Apstra is that as soon as I configure this, this is now going to be the authentication source, or this is going to be where the platform that we're going to talk to. So if you've got other ones configured, then they will be they'll be deactivated, and then this will become the new active. Radius, I'm just going to keep it as the default port, and I'm going to put the IP address in for my Radius server. And then I've also got a Radius shared key that's set up. And if I just flick over to this slide here, this is actually the configuration that I've got. So at the very bottom, you'll see that I've got my Radius secret. And then I've also got a couple of user accounts configured on this Radius server. So I've got 5 in total, all with the same password, but they've also all got these provider groups at the end. And this provider group, so I've got Bob Radius, Alice Radius, so on. And what that is that the Radius server will return that group to Apstra, and then later on we're going to use that returned group, we're going to map it to a permissions role in Apstra. So if I go back here, I'm going to enter my shared key of testing 123, and under advanced configuration you'll see I have this group name. By default, we're going to use the framed filter ID for Radius, but you could set your own custom attribute. So if you wanted a certain attribute in your Radius server to return the group that the user should be in instead, then you can go ahead and put that in here. And we've also got the timeout as well, so how long should it check? How long should it wait until the time's out? So the first thing, so now I've configured, I've put all the information in, I'm just going to check my provider settings, and Apstra is just going to send a blank message to the Radius server and just ask to make sure that it is there and working. And in this case, we can see that it has. We actually did get we got the accept reject message here, so that's fine because we said we didn't send anything useful. But I know it's working, and then I'm also going to log in with one of my users. So I'm going to choose to use Bob for this one. So the username is Bob and the password is test. And then when I click check provider settings, it will then go off and do the authentication request. So at the very top here, I can see that we've got username Bob and password test that was received. And at the very bottom, we'll see that we get the access accept message from our radius server, so that's good, it's been authenticated. And what it's returning to Apstra is this filter ID, so framed filter ID group called Bob Radius. So that's good. So our radius server is up and connected and working. So now we've got the radius server there, we're going to look at actually mapping the different roles that we have available. So these roles here. So for example, for Bob and Alice, we've got Bob Radius, Alice Radius. We're going to go ahead and map these to some different Apstra groups. So first thing to do is when we go under provider role mapping, and then we're going to go ahead and create. So this mapping, the first one I'm going to do is I'm just going to do license reader, and I'm going to do that to Bob Radius. Now I'm going to add a second one, which is a user, which is going to be Alice Radius, and then I'm going to have a device ZTP user, which is going to be Nor Radius. So that's the group mappings that I'm going to do, and I'm just going to click update. So what's going to happen here now is that over here on the right hand side, we'll see that what happened was we actually did send this Bob Radius back. So now when we get this Bob Radius back, in this case, it's going to map from Bob Radius to license reader. And if I look under my platform and roles, we'll see we have a role called license reader. And these are all the permissions that the license reader has. Not many. The only one it has is this Juniper Apstra licenses, and it has read. And it has read set to on. So let me go ahead and log out of my admin account. I'm going to go ahead and do Bob and test. So I'm going to log in. And we'll see now again we've got exactly the same in terms of the radius request. So we got Bob was returned, and we got the access accept. And you'll see straight away that we get forbidden, not enough permissions, because we can't look at, so normally an Apstra you land on a blueprints page, you can't look at that. Manage devices, no. But if I go to platform and I go to licenses, you'll see that I'm able to see the license page. And the same for, if I log in with Alice and test, you can see here, so Alice was configured as a user. So that means that she has more permissions. I think one of the permissions she doesn't have is to look at the particular role. Yes, yeah, so she can't actually view that, but she can go ahead, she can, as a user, she can view a blueprint, for example, look at the stage tab, and so on. So that's how in Apstra you can map your external radius server, or similar process for LDAP, TACACS. You can map those, and you can see how it is when the users aren't configured at all. So again, the users still aren't configured here in this Apstra account, or sorry, this Apstra server. The only user that's configured is admin, but Bob, Alice, Nor, the ones the different groups that I've configured, any user within that group can access Apstra at that level. And this naming might look a bit deceiving in some ways, because you could have multiple users mapped to the provider group Bob Radius. In your radius server, you may have a group that's called NOC or capacity team, and you would map several users to that particular group, and they would have a certain role within Apstra, or be able to access a certain amount of information that you can control by configuring roles within Apstra. So there you go. Hopefully that was interesting, and join me on the next one.